Veteran sniper Jake Thompson told everyone that women lacked the killer instinct for long-range warfare. But when he was bleeding out in enemy territory, the female recruit he'd dismissed was 1,500 yards away, about to demonstrate the deadliest instinct he'd ever witnessed. Meet Private Lisa Martinez, 25 years old, with piercing hazel eyes that could track movement through morning mist, chestnut brown hair always pulled back in a perfect military bun, and hands that moved with the kind of precision that suggested years of practice at something requiring absolute control. She stood 5 feet 7 inches tall, carried herself with quiet confidence, and possessed a natural shooting ability that should have made her the most sought-after recruit in the Army's sniper program. Instead, she was the most dismissed. The problem wasn't her marksmanship. Lisa could consistently hit targets at 1,200 yards with standard equipment, a feat that impressed even veteran instructors. The problem was Master Sergeant Jake Thompson, the most legendary sniper instructor at Fort Stewart, who had made it abundantly clear that he didn't believe women had any business carrying a precision rifle. "Look, Martinez," Thompson had told her during her first week of sniper training, his weathered face showing the kind of skepticism that came from 30 years of military service. "I've got nothing personal against you, but sniping isn't about punching holes in paper targets. It's about putting a bullet through another human being's heart and watching the light leave their eyes. That requires a killer instinct that women just don't possess. You might be able to shoot, but when the moment comes to end someone's life, you'll hesitate. And that hesitation will get you or your spotter killed." Thompson wasn't just any instructor expressing casual prejudice. He was a living legend. 30 years as a sniper, 203 confirmed kills across 6 deployments, recipient of 3 Silver Stars, 2 Bronze Stars, and a Distinguished Service Cross. His word carried more weight than gospel throughout the special operations community. And if Jake Thompson said women couldn't be snipers, most people accepted it as scientific fact. Lisa had heard variations of this speech from other instructors, but Thompson's dismissal cut deeper because she genuinely respected his expertise and had hoped to learn from the best. She'd studied his service record, read about his legendary shots, and knew that his knowledge could make her the sniper she'd always dreamed of becoming. "Sergeant Thompson," she'd replied respectfully, "I understand your concerns, but I'd like the opportunity to prove myself." Thompson had laughed, not cruelly, but with the kind of patronizing amusement that was somehow worse than outright hostility. "Martinez, I've trained over 300 snipers in my career. The ones who succeed have something you can't learn in any school, the ability to kill without conscience when the mission demands it. That's not a criticism of women, it's just biology. You're wired for nurturing, not killing." Despite Thompson's skepticism, Lisa was allowed to continue the program, partly because of Pentagon pressure to integrate women into all combat roles, and partly because her shooting scores were too exceptional to ignore. But Thompson made it clear that he expected her to wash out the moment psychological pressure was applied. The training was absolutely brutal. 20-hour days learning advanced ballistics, meteorology, camouflage techniques, and fieldcraft. Physical conditioning that pushed recruits beyond their breaking points. Psychological evaluations designed to identify soldiers who might crack under the pressure of taking human lives. Map reading, radio procedures, first aid, survival techniques, and most importantly, the mental discipline required to remain motionless for hours while waiting for the perfect shot. Lisa excelled at everything except earning Thompson's respect. During range exercises, she consistently outshot male recruits who had Thompson's full approval. During field exercises, she demonstrated patience and attention to detail that impressed other instructors. During stress testing, she remained calm under pressure that caused veteran soldiers to make critical mistakes. Her technical knowledge was flawless, her physical conditioning was superior, and her shooting ability was simply extraordinary. But Thompson remained unconvinced. "Martinez has got all the technical skills," he would tell other instructors, "but she's never been tested where it really matters, when she's got a human being in her crosshairs and has to make the decision to end someone's life. We'll see what she's really made of. I predict she'll freeze." Lisa knew she was fighting an uphill battle against decades of ingrained assumptions about gender and warfare, but she also knew something that Thompson didn't know about her background. She'd grown up on a working ranch in rural New Mexico, where putting down injured or suffering animals was a regular necessity. She learned early that sometimes taking a life was an act of mercy, and sometimes it was simply what had to be done to protect others. She'd never killed a human being, but she understood the psychology of lethal decision-making better than Thompson assumed. The test of her resolve came during a training exercise in the mountains of North Georgia. Lisa was paired with Corporal Mike Santos as her spotter, tasked with providing overwatch for a simulated village clearing operation while avoiding detection by hunter-killer teams that were trying to locate their position. The exercise was proceeding flawlessly until it suddenly wasn't. At 14:20 hours, real gunfire erupted from a valley approximately 1,800 yards from Lisa's concealed position. This wasn't part of the training exercise. Live ammunition wasn't authorized anywhere near their area of operations, and the sound of automatic weapons fire meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. "Martinez, Santos, hold position and report," came Thompson's voice over the radio. "We've got a real-world situation developing. Enemy combatants have engaged a patrol from Bravo Company. All training exercises are immediately suspended." Lisa looked through her high-powered scope toward the sound of combat and saw something that made her blood run cold. In the valley below, she could see members of Bravo Company pinned down behind inadequate cover, taking concentrated fire from multiple concealed positions. The soldiers were trapped in a kill zone with no clear escape route, and enemy fighters were maneuvering to flank their position. But more importantly, she could see a lone figure approximately 1,000 yards from the main firefight, crawling through tall grass toward what appeared to be an elevated firing position. Through her scope's magnification, Lisa immediately recognized the distinctive movement pattern and body shape. Master Sergeant Jake Thompson. He was attempting to reach a position where he could provide precision sniper support for the embattled patrol, but he was crawling directly into a carefully prepared ambush. Lisa could clearly see at least 4 enemy fighters positioned along his approach route, and Thompson had no idea they were there. The enemy had obviously anticipated that American forces would try to establish sniper overwatch from that exact location. "Santos, do you see Sergeant Thompson?" Lisa whispered to her spotter. Corporal Santos adjusted his binoculars and immediately spotted the developing disaster. "Holy shit, Martinez. He's walking straight into a trap. I count at least 4 hostiles with clear shots on his position, and they're just waiting for him to get close enough." Lisa keyed her radio. "Control, this is Martinez. I have eyes on Sergeant Thompson. He's moving toward sniper position Alpha, but there are multiple enemy combatants prepared to engage him. He's walking into an ambush." "Martinez, this is Control. Fall back to the designated rally point immediately. This is not a training exercise, and you are not authorized to engage in real combat operations." Lisa watched through her scope as Thompson continued crawling toward the enemy position. He was moving with all the skill and caution that had kept him alive for 30 years of combat, but he couldn't see what she could see from her elevated position. The enemy fighters were perfectly concealed from his angle of approach, but clearly visible from her vantage point 1,500 yards away. "Control, Sergeant Thompson needs immediate support. I have clear shots on all hostile positions. I can neutralize the threat before he reaches their kill zone." "Martinez, negative. You are not authorized to engage. Fall back to the rally point now." Lisa looked at Santos, who was tracking the enemy positions through his spotting scope. "Martinez, they're going to kill him. Thompson's got maybe 3 minutes before he crawls into their sights, and once he's in their kill zone, he's dead. Nobody else can see what we can see from up here." Lisa made a decision that would define her entire military career and prove everything Jake Thompson believed about women in combat. She switched off her radio. "Santos, I need range and wind data for 4 targets between 1,400 and 1,600 yards." "Martinez, we don't have authorization to." "Santos, they're going to murder Thompson. I can stop it, but I need your help right now." Her spotter looked at her for a long moment, recognizing the determination in her eyes, then began working his calculations. "First target, 1,420 yards, wind from the southeast at 12 miles per hour. Second target, 1,385 yards, same wind conditions, but he's moving between positions. Third target, 1,510 yards, stationary behind that fallen log. Fourth target, Jesus Martinez, that guy's got to be 1,580 yards out, maybe more, and he's in heavy cover. Lisa adjusted her scope for the extreme ranges and began calculating bullet drop and wind drift with the kind of mathematical precision that Thompson had always insisted women couldn't handle under pressure. At 1,500 plus yards, her .308 rounds would drop nearly 45 feet from their initial trajectory. The gusty wind would push them several feet off course, and she'd have to account for the fact that her targets were moving, breathing human beings, not stationary paper circles. But she'd trained for this exact scenario for months. Every range session, every field exercise, every technical lesson had been preparation for a moment when her skills would mean the difference between life and death for a fellow soldier. Through her scope, Lisa could see that Thompson was now approximately 400 yards from the ambush position. The first enemy fighter was already shouldering his rifle, preparing to take the shot that would kill the man who'd spent months telling everyone that women couldn't be trusted with precision rifles. Lisa controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow to the rhythm she'd practiced thousands of times. The crosshairs settled on the first target's center mass. She accounted for wind drift, bullet drop, and target movement. She exhaled half her breath, held it steady, and squeezed the trigger with the kind of smooth control that Thompson had always claimed women couldn't achieve under pressure. The shot broke perfectly. At 1,420 yards, the bullet took nearly 2 full seconds to reach its target, but Lisa's calculations were flawless. The enemy fighter collapsed without firing a shot, struck by a round he'd never seen coming from a sniper he'd never detected. "Holy shit, Martinez! You got him!" Santos whispered in amazement, but Lisa was already adjusting her aim for the second target. The other enemy fighters had heard the distant crack of her rifle, but couldn't determine where the shot had originated. They were looking in the wrong directions, still focused on Thompson's approach rather than scanning for threats from her position. The second shot was more challenging, because the target had begun moving after hearing the first gunshot. Lisa had to calculate where he would be by the time her bullet arrived, leading him like a hunter tracking a running deer. The mathematics were complex, but her training took over automatically. The 1,385-yard shot was another perfect hit. 2 enemy fighters down, 2 remaining. But Thompson was still crawling toward the kill zone, unaware that a deadly firefight was taking place around him. The third target was attempting to relocate after witnessing 2 of his comrades mysteriously drop dead. He was moving between positions, trying to avoid whatever invisible threat was eliminating his team. But Lisa had been tracking his movement pattern, and she could predict his route. At 1,510 yards, she lined up her third shot of the engagement. The target appeared briefly between 2 trees, exactly where Lisa had calculated he would be. She fired immediately, not allowing herself time to second-guess the shot. Perfect hit. 3 enemy fighters neutralized, 1 target remaining, but this was the most challenging shot of the engagement. The 4th enemy fighter was over 1,580 yards away, nearly a full mile, positioned behind substantial cover and now fully alert to the threat. He'd watched 3 of his comrades fall to an invisible sniper, and he was taking every precaution to avoid the same fate. Lisa could see Thompson through her scope. He was now only 200 yards from where the ambush had been positioned, still crawling steadily forward with no idea that someone had just saved his life. But the 4th enemy fighter was still alive, still armed, and still in position to kill him. The wind had shifted slightly, now coming from the southwest at 15 miles per hour. The target was barely visible behind his cover, only occasionally exposing small portions of his body as he attempted to locate the sniper who had decimated his team. Lisa would have one opportunity, maybe a 2-second window when he'd be exposed enough for a shot. At 1,582 yards, nearly the maximum effective range of her rifle, Lisa prepared to attempt the most important and difficult shot of her life. She waited, controlling her breathing and heart rate with the kind of discipline that Thompson had always insisted women couldn't maintain under extreme pressure. Through her scope, she could see the enemy fighter moving behind cover, and she could see Thompson closing the distance to the position. The target appeared in a gap in his cover, exactly where Lisa had predicted he would emerge. She had perhaps 2 seconds before he disappeared again. She fired. The bullet's flight time at that range was nearly 3 seconds, an eternity in combat. Lisa held her breath and watched through her scope as the enemy fighter suddenly spun and fell, struck by a bullet he'd never seen coming from a sniper positioned at an impossible distance. "Jesus Christ, Martinez!" Santos whispered in pure amazement. "4 targets, all over 1,400 yards, and you got all 4 with perfect shot placement. That wasn't just good shooting, that was supernatural." Lisa was already scanning for additional threats, but the immediate danger had passed. Through her scope, she could see Thompson reaching the position where he'd intended to provide sniper support, completely unaware that he'd just walked through a kill zone where 4 enemy fighters had been waiting to murder him. Her radio crackled to life as she switched it back on. "Martinez, control. Report your status immediately." Lisa keyed the microphone. "Control, Martinez. 4 enemy combatants neutralized at ranges between 1,400 and 1,600 yards. Sergeant Thompson is safe and in position to provide overwatch for Bravo Company." "Martinez, did you just engage enemy targets without authorization?" Lisa looked through her scope at Thompson, who was now setting up his rifle to support the embattled patrol. He was alive because she'd made 4 shots that Thompson himself had always insisted women couldn't make under combat pressure. "Control, I engaged enemy combatants who posed an immediate lethal threat to friendly forces. The threat has been neutralized." 30 minutes later, the firefight was over. Bravo Company had been successfully extracted with no casualties, largely because Thompson had been able to provide precise sniper support from his elevated position. But Thompson still had no idea how close he'd come to death or who had saved his life. Lisa and Santos were ordered to return to base immediately for comprehensive debriefing. As they packed their equipment, Santos shook his head in continued amazement. "Martinez, I've been a spotter for 6 years, and I've worked with some of the best snipers in the Army. What you just did, 4 targets at impossible ranges, all perfect kills under the most extreme pressure imaginable. That wasn't just exceptional shooting. That was the kind of performance that legends are built on." Lisa secured her rifle and began the long hike back to base. "Santos, that wasn't legendary shooting. That was just doing what I trained to do when someone's life depended on it." The debriefing took 8 hours. Lisa was questioned by battalion commanders, range officers, special operations personnel, and investigators who needed to understand exactly what had happened during the engagement. Her shots were analyzed using GPS data. Her targets were confirmed by ground teams, and her decisions were reviewed by officers who couldn't quite believe what they were hearing. The distances were confirmed: 1,420 yards, 1,385 yards, 1,510 yards, and 1,582 yards. 4 enemy combatants, 4 perfect kills under combat conditions that would have challenged the most experienced snipers in the military. But the most important interview came last, when Master Sergeant Jake Thompson was brought in to understand how close he'd come to death. "Martinez," Thompson said as he entered the briefing room, his expression showing confusion and concern. "I understand you provided overwatch during today's engagement." "Yes, Sergeant. I engaged 4 enemy combatants who were positioned to ambush your approach to the sniper position." Thompson studied the tactical map showing Lisa's position and the locations of her targets. His weathered face went pale as he realized the implications of what he was seeing. "Martinez, these enemy positions, they were directly along my approach route. Are you telling me that these targets were specifically waiting to kill me?" "Yes, Sergeant. You were moving directly into a prepared ambush. The enemy fighters had clear shots on your approach route and were waiting for you to enter their kill zone when I neutralized them." Thompson was quiet for a long moment, studying the confirmed ranges and the tactical situation. Finally, he looked directly at Lisa with an expression she'd never seen from him before: respect. Martinez, the longest shot here is over 1,580 yards. That's beyond the effective range of standard equipment under ideal conditions. And these weren't ideal conditions. How did you make those shots? Lisa met his gaze steadily. Sergeant, I calculated bullet drop, wind drift, and target movement based on my training. I waited for optimal opportunities and executed the shots according to the techniques you taught us. But Martinez, those shots, especially that 1,582-yard kill, that's the kind of shooting that very few snipers could accomplish even under perfect conditions. I'm not sure I could have made those shots at those ranges. Sergeant, you would have made the shots if you'd needed to make them. That's what separates good snipers from everyone else, the ability to perform when performance matters most. Thompson was quiet again, processing the reality that the female recruit he'd dismissed as lacking killer instinct had just demonstrated more precision killing ability than most snipers achieved in entire careers. Martinez, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you my life. But more than that, I owe you an acknowledgement that I was completely wrong about women in sniper roles. What you did today, that wasn't just exceptional shooting. That was the finest display of sniper craft I've encountered in 30 years of military service. Lisa nodded respectfully. Sergeant, I'm just grateful that I was in position to help. Help? Thompson laughed, but this time it wasn't patronizing. It was filled with genuine admiration and humility. Martinez, you didn't help. You saved my life with 4 of the most technically perfect shots I've ever heard of. Those kills represent the absolute pinnacle of sniper performance. 2 weeks later, Private Lisa Martinez graduated from sniper school with the highest scores in the program's history. Her final evaluation, written personally by Master Sergeant Jake Thompson, read, Private Martinez possesses the most exceptional natural shooting ability I have encountered in 30 years of training snipers. More importantly, she demonstrates the mental discipline, tactical awareness, and decision-making capability that define elite marksmen. Her performance during a real-world engagement, including 4 confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 1,500 yards, represents the highest possible standard of sniper operations. She has earned my complete respect and my strongest recommendation for immediate assignment to Special Operations units. Thompson had requested a private meeting with Lisa before her graduation ceremony. Martinez, I want you to know that what you did out there fundamentally changed my understanding of what makes a great sniper. I spent 30 years believing that women couldn't do this job, and you proved me wrong in the most definitive way possible. Sergeant, I was just applying the training you provided. No, Martinez, you were demonstrating something that can't be taught, the ability to perform flawlessly when everything depends on your precision. What you showed me wasn't a lack of killer instinct. It was perfect killer instinct combined with technical mastery that most snipers never achieve. Thompson paused, looking out the window at the range where Lisa had spent months proving herself, despite his skepticism. I've been thinking about what I said to you when you first arrived, about women being wired for nurturing instead of killing. I was completely wrong. What you demonstrated wasn't a lack of nurturing instinct. It was nurturing instinct perfectly applied. You protected a fellow soldier with precision that saved his life. Lisa accepted his words gracefully. Sergeant, I learned everything I needed to succeed from your instruction. Even when you doubted my potential, you still taught me the skills that saved your life. Martinez, there's something else. I've recommended you for the Distinguished Marksman badge, and I'm putting you in for the Silver Star for your actions during the engagement. What you did saved not just my life, but potentially the lives of everyone in Bravo Company. 6 months later, Staff Sergeant Lisa Martinez was assigned to a classified Special Operations unit, where her extraordinary abilities were recognized and utilized without question. She went on to compile one of the most impressive sniper records in modern military history, with confirmed kills at ranges that challenged the theoretical limits of rifle accuracy. But more importantly, her success opened doors for countless other women in sniper programs. The old arguments about women lacking killer instinct became impossible to maintain when confronted with Lisa's documented performance. Master Sergeant Jake Thompson spent his remaining years of service as one of the most vocal advocates for women in combat roles. When asked about his dramatic change of perspective, he always gave the same answer. "I used to think that being a sniper required masculine killer instinct. Then, I met a female soldier who saved my life with 4 impossible shots at impossible ranges, and I learned that the best killer instinct is actually protective instinct." Lisa Martinez didn't succeed despite being a woman. She succeeded because she possessed the most lethal combination of technical skill and protective determination I'd ever encountered. The veteran who had insisted women lacked the killer instinct for sniper operations had learned the most important lesson of his career from the woman whose abilities he'd initially dismissed. And in the process, both of them had redefined what killer instinct really meant in modern warfare. Sometimes the most dangerous assumptions are the ones we hold about human potential based on outdated stereotypes. Lisa Martinez's 1,582-yard shot didn't just save a life, it shattered a barrier that had prevented countless qualified women from serving in roles where their skills could protect fellow soldiers and save lives. The best snipers, it turned out, weren't defined by their gender or their capacity for aggression. They were defined by their ability to make impossible shots when everything depended on their precision and their willingness to risk everything to protect others. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.